Okay, boys and girls, we're going to do Chapter 8. Chapter 8. All right, your RFO question for Skylark Chapter 8 is... Chapter 8. The question is, why was Sarah crying and crying? She's going to be kind of uncontrollably crying in this chapter. And the bonus question was, when they finally had Sarah's birthday party, what was her favorite birthday present? So what was her favorite present? Okay, all right, here we go. Chapter 8. Sarah and I sat down in the kitchen. The air was thick and the heat, and there was no breeze at all in there. There hadn't been any wind for days. Sarah was writing a letter to the aunts in Maine. I wrote in my journal. Remember the wildflowers? I asked Sarah. Remember those roses that grew on the fence? Remember singing? Yes, she said. She reached out and she touched my hair. I remember. Papa, Papa, coyote! Shouted Caleb from outside. Sarah and I ran outside. By the paddock fence, a thin coyote was drinking water out of the water pail. He'll kill Moonbeam, shouted Caleb. Papa came from the field, took a step toward the coyote, and then turned and ran to the house. He came out with his rifle. Jacob, what are you going to do? Cried Sarah. Go inside, Sarah, he said. Papa raised his rifle to shoot the coyote, but Sarah grabbed the barrel of the rifle. No, don't do it, Jacob, don't! Sarah, stop, yelled Papa. Papa tried to push her away, and the coyote looked up at the sound of the voices. Slowly, he ran away over the fields, stopping once to look back, and then he was gone. Sarah began to cry. He only wanted water, Jacob, water! Caleb climbed over the paddock fence and stood next to me. Papa took Sarah's arm and turned to Caleb. Put the animals in the barn, Caleb, he told him. Caleb turned and he walked towards the barn. Tears were streaming down Sarah's face. Water, she said. He only wanted water, just like us. She slumped to the ground and she put her hands over her face as she cried. Get Sarah something to drink, Anna, said Papa. He took off his hat and he sat down on the ground next to her. Anna, now! I turned and I went to the water barrel and scooped out a cup of water. Papa put his arm around Sarah. His voice was soft. Sarah, Sarah, it'll be all right. It will be all right, he said softly. But Sarah cried and cried, and when Papa turned and looked at her, I knew that nothing was all right. The look in her eyes was fear. And that night, when I came in from the barn to go to bed, there was something else missing from the fence. Missing like Sarah's roses. Caleb's glass was gone. They're coming, said Caleb, looking out the upstairs window. He wore a clean shirt and his hair was brushed smooth. I wore the dress I'd worn when Papa and Sarah were married. Outside, wagons came into the yard. Will this make Sarah happy? Caleb asked me, really kind of worried. I watched more wagons drive in, and I saw Maggie, dressed in a rose dress with a straw hat. Yes, I said, this is going to make Sarah happy. Anna, Caleb, what is this? Sarah asked in the bedroom doorway. We whirled around silent. Sarah looked to the window to look out, but I took her hand and I pulled her out into the hallway. Papa looked up the stairs at her. He wore a vest and his hair was slicked back, and he smiled at her. Happy birthday, Sarah, he said. There are guests and presents, Sarah, said Caleb. But I'm not dressed, said Sarah. Well, then get dressed, said Papa. Outside, there was a table in the shade of the house, set with food and lemonade. Maggie and Matthew were there, and Rose and Violet, and the baby. All the neighbors were there, too. Papa carried something covered with a cloth out from the table. What is that? Asked Maggie. Oh, you'll see, said Papa. Here she is, someone said. And we all turned, and Sarah came out on the porch in her white dress. Happy birthday, Sarah, said Papa. Happy birthday, everyone called. Sarah smiled at the sight of them. Everyone washed and was clean, as if the prairie wind had stopped covering us all with dust. A present from the aunts, said Papa. He took the cloth away, and there was a phonograph. I handed him a record, and he put the needle on it. Suddenly, music filled the yard, and Sarah stared. Papa walked up to her and held out his hand. He smiled and she came down the steps, and they began to dance. Maggie and Matthew began to dance too, and the baby was between them. Everyone danced. And then in the dirt yard, the light around them was all yellow, just like on the phonograph. Sarah buried her face in Papa's shoulder, and Caleb smiled at me. And for a long while, as the sun began to set, as they danced, everyone forgot about the drought. And for a while, everyone was happy again, even Sarah and Papa. The last of the wagons left in the moonlight, and Sarah and Papa waved goodbye. Caleb was asleep under the table, and Papa took him off to bed. Then Papa helped Sarah carry the phonograph inside. "I have a present for you, Sarah," I said. I handed her a small book. "Anna, what is this?" said Sarah. "It's a book I started about you, about our family." Papa went out to the porch, and Sarah sat down and opened the book. She began to read. "When my mother..." She stopped and looked at me, and then she began to read again. Papa stood outside the screen door listening. "When my mother, Sarah, came, she came by train. I didn't know I loved her, but Caleb did. Papa didn't know either, but he does love her. I've seen them kiss." Sarah smiled at me, and I have seen the way he looks at her and the way he touches her hair. My mother, Sarah, doesn't love the prairie. She tries, but she can't help remembering what she knew first. Sarah stopped, and she closed the book, holding it close to her. "You like it," I said. "I like it," said Sarah softly. She put her arms around me, and I saw Papa watching us. Sarah got up then and went to the door. "It was a pretty party, Jacob." "A fine party." She put her hand up, and he did too. And so they touched through the screen. "I'd almost forgotten music," whispered Sarah. And when she looked past Papa at the fence post, "Hey, where's Caleb's glass?" "Jacob." Papa didn't speak. "Put it back, please, Jacob," said Sarah. "It should be there when it rains." Papa stared at Sarah, and when I went to bed later that night, I looked out, and I saw it there, shining and clean on the fence post. The end of chapter 8.